And my approach with the executives was every company is a media company. It's just we sell different stuff. So we had to figure out different ways to approach the market. And this is the way that they graciously let me try. And we've seen some really good results.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS Podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. The last 3 years have changed the way businesses operate, with podcasts and videos becoming the most consumed media for information consumption. With 80% of the B2B sales decisions are being influenced by industry influencers and consultants, today's businesses need to be thought leaders in their space. But who drives thought leadership in a company? In today's episode, we have our guest, Chris Grainger, who discusses how his company, EECO, a large electrical distributor, needed to change the way they sold to their customers. He also touches on how they started their journey of thought leadership, highlighting heroes in their community, which has helped them strengthen their position in the market and acquire net new business in a whole new different way. Let me introduce Chris to you. Chris Grainger has been supporting industry for 20 years. His passion is serving others and creating a strategy to support the changing needs of manufacturing. He hosts the podcast EECO Asks Why, which highlights the ideas and heroes that serve industry with aspirations to inspire others. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hey Chris, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Sam.
Of course, my pleasure. So just to kick things off, do you want to start with your personal story and what you are focusing on these days?
No, absolutely. I started out I went to Old Dominion University in Virginia and studied electrical engineering. And from there, have great opportunity to work for an electrical equipment company. It's a wholesale distributor servicing the industrial market in the Southeast U.S. I've had many different roles at EECO, what we call it. And one of the most recent projects that I've been very blessed to be a part of is we were able to start a podcast at EECO called EECO Asks Why. And we focus on the people and the ideas out there that are, leading industry and getting a lot of the topics and guests out there to share their stories, because we really feel that they are the heroes. So that's been a wonderful adventure and something that has really been just taken such a big piece of my heart and to serve others with this. And I actually got that started by working with our executives. I know you customize a lot of your message to executives out there. And my approach with the executives was, every company is a media company. It's just, we sell different stuff. So we had to figure out different ways to approach the market. And this is the way that they graciously let me try. And we've seen some really good results since.
Okay, amazing. So I want to touch on a lot of different topics there, especially related to changing the mindset to the media company. And obviously, my target audience is going to be CFOs and COOs. So sometimes they don't really understand what media company means. So we are going to dig into that. But before that, one question that we ask every single guest that we get here is going to be your perspective on growth. What does growth mean to you, Chris?
Growth means to me, it's always moving forward and having an open mind to understand the changing landscape of what's around you. If you look at B2B, and that's the industry that I serve in, it is the B2B industry. Since when COVID impacted it, things have been completely flipped or upside down. And to be and to have a growth mindset, you have to understand, hey, things have changed. And what do I need to change in the way that I approach my work or how I support people or just how customers or clients are needing support in the future? How is all that changing? Because I have to add value to that. And maybe the value that I had a year ago, pre-COVID, is not the value that customers and clients need right now. So growth to me is just that growth mindset of always be evaluating and willing to change.
So now let's talk about your story. Obviously, you started the podcast for a reason, and you mentioned that your goal is to find heroes from the community. So obviously, Chris, we are CFO and COOs out here.
We like to see a little bit of numbers. And obviously, we want to serve the community, we want to serve our customers, but we also need to have a business plan behind that. So what was the genesis of your podcast? What was the thinking behind that? What were the changes that you were monitoring in the market and what you are trying to get out of it?
Sure. I mean, for what we saw, customers were changing the way that they're consuming content. If you look at the industrial market, there's a lot of information out there that you can get straight from manufacturers, but we're the distributor. We're the middle guy. So we need to be the ones leading the message for our customers and serving them the best way we can with the thought leadership. And I started evaluating and listening to a lot of things and studying, listening to a lot of Gary V and understanding, things that he's promoting from a media standpoint, and just really applied that to say, okay, to our business, we're not doing this. Nobody's doing this. Nobody's talking about these things. It's the same old traditional way about the business for the vertical that we're in. And we had a great chance to get out front and really lead the way. And not that we want to leave everybody behind, but hey, we want to go where they're going and where our customers are going and help them in ways they hadn't considered. And that has been the biggest impact for us. And so when we start talking I know you talk about CEO, COO, CFOs from an impact standpoint, I think for them, it's been, hey, we're the thought leaders here. And when you're a thought leader of whatever space you're in, that's going to have financial impacts at the end.
Okay. So when I look at your background, I mean, you were not part of the marketing department. Typically, these initiatives are led by the marketing department, right? So in your case, when you started this initiative, so obviously, every company needs to be a media company. I get it. So when we look at our manufacturing and distribution landscape, where should the mindset start in terms of starting these initiatives?
Well, I mean, most of the times it does start in the marketing departments, because you're right. That's where a lot of that creativity, if you will, lands. It's not always engineering, like with my background, but that's okay. But I will say for us, I have a colleague that he's our executive producer, Adam Sheets. He's my number one guy. And he really helps me on a lot of the production aspects. But really, I think if a company wants to be that thought leader and get out in front of things, you got to look at your subject matter experts. They should be the ones leading a lot of the efforts and getting behind it. And that just takes a different type of thinking. And there are a lot of resources that I continue to study out there to help me evaluate where I'm at and where do I want to go. How can I bring the most value to the market? How can I bring the most value to my employer and ultimately serve the people that I want to serve the best? And I think that through that approach really led us down this unique path where someone over engineering was kind of leading the charge, if you will, for a podcast to serve the market.
So in your case, how did this all start? So EECO, if I look at the company, the size of the company is fairly large. Right. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if you were their top subject matter expert. How did they pick you to start this podcast, or you started this?
Well, I picked them. Basically, it was default. So I actually pitched it to the executives. I had our COO and a vice president of sales, and I just set them down with our marketing manager, and I had a business plan laid out on how I felt like this needed to happen. The little capital we needed up front to get it going, and a list of topics. I think I started the list with 20 or 30 topics I thought we could talk about. And they gave the nod and said, do you think you can do it? And I put my head down. I said, I think I can, but I'd love to have a chance, and looking back now, we've interviewed so many guests and probably 150 or plus actual recordings and we're up to almost 70 episodes out right now. And we've increased our cadence to twice a week for drops. So it's been really wonderful. And I've had a great chance to meet wonderful people just like yourself, Sam. And, when you podcast, it naturally connects you to so many people, CEOs and high-level executives, all the way down. For me, I get the most pleasure out of working with the guys that are in the plant and the girls that are in the plant. They're the ones that are on the floor. We actually interview them as well. And that's what brings me so much fulfillment out of doing the podcast.
Right, I understand. So let's say if I'm looking at one of the engineering manager in my manufacturing organization, typically their days are going to be super occupied and they need to report whatever they are working on, right? In addition to that, podcast is a is a humongous amount of work. I mean, it's not easy task at all. Each episode that we produce, it requires roughly 20 hours of work, to be honest. Okay,
Yeah.
that's how much work it takes to produce a podcast. It's not easy. So in your case, and I don't know, what was the personal driver? You said that you were listening to a lot of shows from Gary Vee, which could be very inspirational. I get it. But again, considering the amount of work involved, what was the major personal driver for you to undertake such a heavy responsibility?
I needed a project moving forward that I could put my heart into.
Okay.
And quite frankly, just selling parts and being distributor tied to a lot of commodities, that was not fulfilling for me. So I needed to find a way to have a greater impact, on a greater community, and try to give people a voice that I felt. I've heard these voices for years as servicing the market, but I've never, it's just one-on-one. So this gave an opportunity to amplify that voice and get out there and give me something that I really felt aligned with my career goals, the things I like to be learning about. I was one of those engineers, man, that I did the engineering work. I did the math. I got the diploma, did all the work, but I've never really had the passion to be the engineer who's doing the design work. I much more rather be networking or helping people achieve their goals and working alongside versus being tied to a cubicle doing, PLC programming, for instance. So it was just a natural fit for me and what I desire for my career, to take a path like this and learn skills like this. And it's led to now new skills like video and understanding how video editing and trying to bring that component to fruition. Because you're right, it's a lot of work for every podcast episode if you treat the guests the way that they should be treated. I mean, we do blogs, a lot of social media posts, and then you repurpose all the content and make case studies where we can. Where I'm writing 3 case studies right now based off of some conversations we've had. So it really consumes you. But if it's work that you're passionate about, you find the time and you make the priority.
So were there any compromises in your job responsibilities? Do you still have that job that you were doing on a daily basis? In addition to that, you are able to do this as well?
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm still the engineering and services manager. I think what it does for you as your responsibilities go up and time crunch goes up, you learn to delegate and you learn how to manage. Basically, this podcasting is just like any engineering project. You manage it just like that. And if you have a schedule and you have a process and you get it defined and then you block that time, it works, so you just have to work that into the regular work that you're doing, the other work that you're doing, because this is the work, and it all falls in alignment. I still have monthly one-on-ones with every one of my direct reports. We still have dashboards. We still have all our metrics. I have automated a lot of that stuff so that the numbers that are important for us to be chasing are in front of us all the time. So my engagement with my team is a lot more meaningful, more impactful, but also I understand to do this right and to do video right and to do blogs right and case studies right, you better dedicate time to it, or it's just going to be halfway done, no value to the people out there that are consuming it. And then, nobody's going to get any value from it. And at that point, why are you even doing it? So if you approach it like an engineering project, I think for me, that's been the biggest thing, and just defining that process.
Okay, amazing. So you did mention during your introduction that the market is changing and the way thought leadership is working in the market, the kind of messaging customers like to hear at this point of time is completely different. Mm-hmm. So what are some of the things that you have noticed that have changed in the market in the last 2-3 years?
So much more is going to video, man. I mean, we're seeing so many of our, the vendors we support getting messages out via video. And that's something I've just been doing so much studying on, about how to if you want to be a thought leader, if you want to really get out in front and serve your industry the best, you better be figuring out how to do it via video and via podcast. That's really 2 really good mediums to work through, because just think about the way you consume content and just what YouTube has done for the world for over the last couple of years. Yep. You want to learn how to do anything, you pick it up and you go to YouTube and you figure it out, and you need to be there. So if you're in the B2B space, one thing that I'm spending a lot of time on right now is, what are the questions that the market's asking? And then I want to be the thought leader in answering those questions. I really don't care about the features and benefits and all this other stuff of these, because everybody's got that feature and benefit puke that they can do for you. I care about what are the end users, what are the people out there in the market, what questions are they asking? Because they're the ones I want to answer. And if I answer them openly and honestly with a servant heart, the business will follow, right?
Right. So I'm a CFO here. Okay, Chris. And let's say if you are trying to pitch me an idea, or my team is trying to pitch me an idea, obviously I have a job to do. I would love to serve the community, but I need to do my job as well. And my job is to maintain the top line as well as bottom line, right? So let's say if you're pitching me an idea, in your case, obviously you are a superhero, Chris, that you are able to do your job, you are able to do the podcast, you are able to build the content. But let's say if I am running a manufacturing shop as a CFO, I'm not going to find another Chris, to be honest. Okay, I need to find some budget to be able to run this initiative. And I need to know the ROI from the initiative. So in your case, have you been able to find any business using this effort?
Yeah, absolutely. And it came down to, for us, a couple of our actual guests that we were able to bring on have since then brought us in to have deeper business conversations to actually expand our business. Some of them we've never even done business with before. And now that they've gone through this experience, we helped them figure out something about their market, right? And they liked it so much. And as a connector, and you know this very well, Sam, as a connector, I'm watching who's watching. And then when I see that they're interested or they like something, I'm reaching out to them. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, we're building that relationship even further, because like I said before, the way pre-COVID worked for a B2B is not how it is now. So it's the podcast has given us opportunities to serve new clients, understand their needs, build trust. And we're doing all this without ever setting foot actually in their plant. And that, when you think of it that way, nobody's done that. And so that's been for us a return for sure in several pretty specific cases, but it's been really neat to see how that works. And as it grew, we're not even a year into the podcast for us. We're still less than a year old. I'm so excited for where it can go, because 2021, that is the focus, more actual in client conversations to understand what's changing in the market.
Okay, so let's say if I'm the manufacturer or the distributor, and I sort of understand that there is going to be some value from the thought leadership. I'm not sure if I'm sold on it, okay? Because, you need to try before you can see some ROI. So what would be your recommendation in terms of starting on this journey?
I would probably really start with your blogging, really get good at blogs, answer the questions, again, that your market asks, and answer them straight up. And talk about, the stuff like cost, delivery, and it's not about puking out what you're great at. It's about answering the question, right? Everybody wants to talk about how awesome they are versus, hey, let's just answer the question, because and then start monitoring that content. There's all sorts of ways to do that. And we won't get into that today, but see what's working for you. But blogging, that's something anybody can do. There's no equipment required. People still consume a massive amount of written content. And then if you can get to be a thought leader in your space by blogging, that's going to open up avenues, particularly for us. We've noticed, like, if a blog takes off, you can bet your bottom line, I'm going to be bringing that topic up on the podcast, because obviously people are searching it. And our number one most downloaded podcast happens to be our number one most downloaded blog. We linked them together. Now, every time that people open up that blog, they're consuming our podcast. They're learning more about us. We're serving them at higher levels, and then the leads continue to come in.
Okay, so I like the pitch about blog, that it's not really expensive because you don't really require the gears, but not everyone is going to be an effective writer. And if that was the case, then everybody in this world would probably become an author, which is not the case.
Yep,
right?
True.
And blogging is very expensive as well. It's not easy, because if I ask my marketers, and if I'm a manufacturing executive, my writer is going to say, you know what, I'm actually going to charge you whatever, $300 for a blog. That is probably going to be 500 words. And there is no promise for an ROI, right? If I have the same pitch with the trade show, if I'm going for a trade show or something like that, I'm actually shaking hands. I'm doing the conversations there. So why do you recommend that I should be writing a blog, and how do you see ROI from that?
Well, I'm gonna give you a reference that I think your audience may really find value in. Okay. And it's a book written by Marcus Sheridan. It's called They Ask You Answer. And if you write the blogs, and if you're a sales executive, CFO, COO, and your focus is, again, serving your industry to the top level that you can, what do you need to know? Well, you need to know the questions that whoever your end customer is, what they're asking, the heart of it, and then you focus on that. Now, you're right. Not everybody has top level writers, but we all, in whatever business we have subject matter experts. A lot of the times the information is in everyone that works around you's head, but you do have to gather that information. It could just be as simple as a brainstorming session. It can start off as just technical type documents, and then work with, maybe you use Upwork or use different, outsourced type of resources to get some marketing assistance to actually, pretty it up, if you will, things like that. But I think if it's important enough to really, if you want to be the leader, you better find resources to get behind being a thought leader in content development, because that's the way the world's turning. And that's why I said that resource, They Ask You Answer, you start walking through the principles of that book and that guide, if you will, that will put you where you need to be and making those decisions. Because, it all starts changing. Next thing you know, you probably need a content manager. You maybe need a video choreographer that's in your organization. And a lot of times these types of roles aren't thought about, but they better be, because it's changing so quickly. You better get on that train.
Yeah. And what is the role of the influencer? So the more and more I am noticing the market, Chris, the role of influencer is changing, especially in the B2B market. If we look at any of the expensive purchases, and I don't know how expensive your equipments are, but in 90% of the deals that we come across in our space, they have some sort of influencer involved. And obviously these influencers are either the social media celebrities. And again, these social media celebrities don't need to be somebody who's doing fashion talk or music talk. They are either the manufacturing influencers or digital transformation influencers or industry 4.0 influencers. And the more influence that they have, the more they are influencing the deals. And there is a whole different ball game here in terms of maintaining the relationship with the influencer. And the more we see the LinkedIn, the way it is going at this point of time, the way we are seeing the podcast and the video community, the way it is going, I think influencers are going to be very relevant in the future. So what would be your thoughts on that? Do influencers matter? And how would you build relationships with the influencers?
So the answer, do the influencers matter? Yes.
And why is it? Why is that? Because not every manufacturer cares for the influencers. So you tell me why.
Well, why? Because again, look at how people consume content now, and how they learn and how they make decisions. I've read the stats all over the place, but somewhere between 70 and 80% of a buyer's decision typically is made before they contact the distributor or the company directly. Why? Because they've consumed so much content online. So either you figure out a way as a manufacturer or as a leader in industry to be out front in the content that they're consuming, or you get left behind. And if you're a company like EECO, like I work for, we don't make anything. We sell other people's stuff. We are the distributor. We are essentially the middleman between the manufacturer and the end user. So for us, it's even more vital to be that thought leader, to help get these topics and get in front of them, and to be that thought leader for these topics for the industry, so that they see the value that we bring and the dots that we can connect for all the different types of solutions to bring to the table. So influencers are so important, man. And so far as networking with them, if you start doing just like you're doing with podcasting and videos and blogs and all that stuff, you connect and you meet the influencers. The next thing you know, you may be an influencer yourself as your network begins to grow.
Okay, so where do you see this going? I mean, obviously, podcasting is slightly newer compared to, let's say, blog or video. But in case of podcasting, I mean, right now it is newer. So we have some categories, let's say, penetrated in specific niches or these spaces. But let's say if everybody starts doing the podcasting, do you think everybody is going to be equally successful with podcasting?
No, not at all. Because I think, there's stats out there, and a friend of mine, I believe he was on your show, Chris Lukey. He talked about the number. I can't remember the percentage, but it's over 50% of podcasts that fail, and they never get past episode 10. So, I mean, I think, it sounds glorious and wonderful, and I've talked to several people who are trying to start podcasts. And what I tell them is, when the mic's hot, that's the fun part. But there's so much work before and after. I related it to, I used to work on race cars. And I told them, I said, everybody shows up on Sunday to see the cars out on the racetrack, but they don't see all the work prior to, leading up to, and they don't see all the work afterwards where you have to fix stuff that got tore up, right? So, I mean, it's the same thing with podcasting. There's so much pre-work and post-work. If you want it to be successful, and if you're truly trying to serve people the right way, I think that's what turns a lot of people off, man.
Okay, amazing. So let's say we have this manufacturing value chain, right? So you guys are distributors and you see the value because you are not really carrying your product. You are slightly more marketing channel for your OEMs or the manufacturers. But do you believe that even for the manufacturers or retailers, they have to develop the thought leadership as well? And if they do, I mean, you guys are selling similar products. Are there going to be any duplication in thought leadership when manufacturer, retailers, and you start doing the same thing?
I think it could be, but I think that's good. I mean, I think the more, the more that manufacturers understand their fit, and that helps because not every distributor, Sam, is going to be like us and want to be the thought leader and get out in front. A lot of us, most distributors rather, really want to just understand what the manufacturer's features and benefits are and go talk about those because that's easy. So, we're taking a much different approach, but I think any manufacturing business or business in general, you need to understand the value you're bringing, the markets you're trying to serve, and the questions that they're asking, and answer those the best you can. And if you do that, man, you're going to bring so much value. And if there's cross, there's cross in what I do and what some integrators are doing. And I think, but that's good. I mean, it's people are talking about these topics, and that makes it even more relevant.
Okay, so what is your perspective on some of these consulting businesses? So in the manufacturing ecosystem, we have a lot of consultants who don't necessarily sell their physical products. They are primarily consulting. So do you believe that they should be answering these questions as well? And if they do, then what are they going to sell? Because that's what they are selling.
Absolutely, they need to be answering them, but they're going to be selling. You're answering a lot of the questions that people are asking, but at the end of the day, as a consultant, there's still that one-on-one touch because everybody's story is unique, right? But some of the high level, the basic questions you get asked all the time. If you were to lead that effort as a consultant, and I'm trying to do this, I have a side hustle where I do financial consulting or financial coaching on the side to help people. And my approach there is shifting to, I want to start asking the questions that people are asking about their personal finances and just answer them and be the thought leader there. And then from that's going to groom those leads. And when they come to me, they're going to have a wealth of information that hopefully I've helped them with, but there's still going to be dots that need to be connected. And I think as a consultant in any business, and I just use mine as an example, that's the value you bring. You connect the dots. You can read the tea leaves as I have a good buddy who says that all the time, and understand what needs to be applied to fix that situation, if you will.
Okay, so you mentioned that you found a lot of heroes as part of your podcasting journey. So do you have any stories that you might be able to share of those heroes? Do you want to highlight any of those?
Oh, man, they're all so good, Sam. I had, I guess one of the surprises, I spoke to a gentleman. He was the president of a company in Virginia, and he has no social media presence. I think he has a LinkedIn account, but nothing else in that. Not very active, but just one of the most humble people I've ever met in my life. And his episode, man, it blew up. Like when we dropped it, it just all of a sudden it rocket shipped, and it come to show me how he's such a servant leader, and he's helped people so much throughout his career that they immediately wanted to hear what he said when that was released. So that was a really, really cool one. We did a women's series.
I want to discuss further on that. So what were some of the key takeaways of that story? Why it really clicked with people? What was so compelling about that episode?
It started with, he didn't go to college. He went straight from high school, graduated. He started as a welder at this company, traveling the country, welding, earning every spot he got, right? And every time he made an advancement in his career was just through hard work, determination, and a servant mindset. And all the way, like I said, he's the president of the company. So obviously it worked out very well for him. And he's just done tremendous things. But that was the big takeaway, just how it was not an easy road, but he never wavered once. He was always committed to serving people the best, helping them, not getting into political battles and trying to figure out, what's in it for me. And that just propelled him to the top.
Okay, so did you do any sort of surveys with your listeners? What was so compelling about that episode that resonated with everybody? Is it just the humbleness, which is great, but there must be something else to the story that really resonated with them, right?
I think what resonated, man, was just the authenticity of this gentleman and how much he really impacted people. Because you can't get certain stats from your podcast, as you know, depending on where you publish at. But still, it's only so granular that you can get to. So it's hard to really tell. Obviously, a lot in his area was a big lift for us, just from a geography standpoint. But I still think just his straight humility and his overall story is just something that really took off. Of course, we do quote posts on LinkedIn and Facebook and things like that. So we'll take snips of every episode and we'll make quotes and we'll put little things out there, just little 30-minute blurps out there. I think you do that as well. Yeah. And that really worked well. And just, it really took off, man. So it was really cool to see.
Amazing. So you were telling the other story. You wanna do that?
Well, the other one that so far is what stood out was we did a Women in Engineering series, and that was phenomenal, man. I mean, I have two daughters, 8 and 10 years old. So that was a series that was passionate to my heart. And we had guests all the way from a young lady who just graduated college and going into engineering manufacturing to we interviewed very high level executive at a major manufacturer, and from everywhere in between, from a work standpoint, from a work experience standpoint. And it touched my heart. My daughters listened to it was 11 episodes. They loved them all. They were very inspired. And just to hear how these women, all their paths were unique, but they all were so successful, and just, it brought so much inspiration, if you will, to my 10-year-old in particular, and just how cool the different things went. I mean, they were talking about they've traveled all over the world and done these different things, and they would come to me, do you know this lady went to China? So yeah, she did, man. So it was cool.
Okay, amazing. That's it for today, Chris. Do you have any last minute closing thoughts?
No, Sam, this has been great, man. I mean, I really appreciate them. I'm humbled. I'm honored that you asked me to be on. I wish you much success in the future. And if any of your guests would like to check out our podcast, I'm sure you'll link that up in the show notes, and we'd be, very appreciative for people to check us out as well.
Okay, amazing. And I'm going to have a comment there. So I think I have hosted you as one of the most humble guy on my podcast. Okay. You are a servant leader. And I'm really hoping, Chris, here, okay, the way the humble episode podcast worked for you, I'm hoping that this podcast is going to give me the maximum number of downloads.
Oh, man, that'd be wonderful. That would be an honor if that happens. And we will, I really thank you so much for having me, man.
All right. Thank you so much, Chris, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Absolutely, buddy.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show, for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests, and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Chris or EECO Asks Why, head over to EECOaskswhy.com. It's EECOaskswhy.com, and connect with him on LinkedIn. You can look him up with Chris Grainger on LinkedIn. If you are interested in his financial coaching side hustle, head over to fmgfinancialhope.com. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Katie Thomas, CPA from Leaders Online, who discusses the importance of personal brands and why personal branding is essential for personal growth and corporate branding. Also, the interview with Greg Michio from Winbound, who talks about why manufacturing organizations need to adopt the approach of digital twin to augment their sales teams. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you. and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.